Billionaire uncovers heartwarming truth behind little girl's cry. The Boogeyman hurts me, an emotional journey to healing, in the heart of a struggling Rust Belt town. The vibrant melody of life clashed with the stark reality of economic hardship. Sarah, a hardworking single mother in her mid-30s, spent her nights serving steaming plates of comfort food in a diner that felt at once both warm and suffocating. She smiled through her exhaustion, willing her dreams of a better life to stay alive for the sake of her spirited 6-year-old daughter. Emily, "Mommy, can we have pancakes tomorrow?" Emily would ask, her eyes glimmering with hope. Sarah would nod, her heart heavy, knowing a stack of flavored syrup was a luxury too often out of reach. Emily's laughter echoed through their small, worn-out home, but it was often punctuated by tears. The Boogeyman haunted her, not the monster under the bed, but the persistent fear of losing their home, of her father's absence, and of the crushing weight of financial despair. Every bedtime story about dragons or fairies was met with a reminder of the Boogeyman real life, which felt terrifyingly unpredictable. "Mom, what if he comes for us?" She'd whisper in fear, leaving Sarah scrambling for reassuring words that masked her own anxieties. One sunlit Saturday, the community center was bustling with the annual spring festival. Sarah had agreed to perform, sharing her singing with the townsfolk as a way to escape reality, if only for a moment. She poured her heart into each note, laughter intermingling with tears. The crowd clapped, but from the back emerged a figure: Jack, a billionaire in a crisp suit, used to jewels and silence, intrigued by the warmth he sensed emanating from Sarah's tunes. Then it happened. Amid the celebration, Emily's cries rose above the cheerful chatter. "The Boogeyman! Yes, real." Her innocent scream shattered the festive air, pulling at Jack's heartstrings. Startled, he made his way through the throng, drawn in by her raw emotion. When he reached her, Emily's big eyes reflected a mixture of fear and desperation. "It's not monsters you can fight. It's the real ones that hurt my mom and me," she confessed, voice trembling. Jack's world of opulence felt cold and empty compared to the fiery, desperate honesty of this little girl. "This isn't a fairy tale, is it?" he asked Sarah later, standing on the periphery of their lives, eyes widened in realization. She shared their struggle, her relentless work shifts, the sacrifices she made for Emily's happiness, and the vibrant community of fighters who refused to break. Jack's heart ached as he began to see the sharp contrast between his sheltered existence and their undeniable resilience. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack was torn between his indulgent life and the urgent needs of those who lived in the shadows of his lifestyle. As he ventured deeper into this world, he became haunted by the truth behind Emily's transparent joy and fear. Meanwhile, their bond strengthened, leading to poignant discussions about hope in the face of despair. "Mom, what if the real Boogeyman isn't a monster at all?" Emily's question hung in the air, layered with meaning, as Jack's resolve teetered on the brink of a life-altering choice. As tensions escalated around him, forces determined to protect the status quo, Jack faced his own emotional reckoning. Would he shrink back into his bubble of comfort, or step into the uncertain path of helping those who needed him most? And just as hope seemed achievable, an unexpected twist revealed cracks in both their lives, leaving Jack teetering on the edge of transformation, the weight of the world resting heavy on his shoulders. Jack stared out of his office window, the sprawling city beneath him damp and gray. His thoughts were a whirlwind, bouncing between Emily's tear-filled eyes and Sarah's unwavering strength. He could almost hear the echo of the spring festival, the laughter, the music, and then, most hauntingly, Emily's plea. "It's the real ones that hurt us." Those words had lodged themselves in his heart like an arrow. As he shifted his gaze from the sprawling skyline to the lonely street below, He felt as if something essential was slipping through his fingers. Not just his wealth, but a part of his humanity that had become numb beneath layers of privilege. Late afternoon traffic buzzed along, but all he saw were shadows of people, just like Sarah and Emily, navigating their daily battles. He rose from his desk and grabbed his jacket, determination coursing through him. It was time to act. Maybe the first step was to go back to the diner. He needed to hear their stories more, find a way to help them. It was one thing to observe from afar, but another to immerse himself in their truth. That night, with his heart pounding, Jack walked into the diner, the familiar smells wrapping around him like a warm hug. The worn-out booths were filled with families, laughter, and the clinking of silverware against plates. His eyes quickly found Sarah, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, a smile adorning her face as she served pancakes to a table full of kids. He took a moment to soak it all in the simple joy amidst the backdrop of struggle. "Hey there, stranger." Sarah's voice pulled him from his reverie as she approached his table, a friendly smile illuminating her tired eyes. "Hey Sarah," he replied, suddenly feeling bashful. "I just wanted to see how you and Emily are doing." Her expression softened. "She's okay. But we're still dealing with, the boogeyman," she finished, her voice dropping. Jack felt a sting of guilt. "I've been thinking a lot about what Emily said." Sarah tilted her head slightly, curiosity etched across her face. "About the real boogeyman?" He nodded. "Maybe I can help somehow." As he said the words, they hung between them, heavy with intent. Sarah studied him for a moment, and for the first time he felt the weight of her doubt. "I don't want to get your hopes up," she cautioned, her brow furrowing. "People like us, we don't often get help. We're used to just surviving." Jack swallowed hard, the raw honesty cutting deep. A determination ignited within him. What if I could do more than just help? What if I could make a real difference? A flicker of hope sparked in Sarah's eyes. "And how do you plan to do that?" she asked, her voice a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I won tea back down. There has to be a way." As Sarah turned her attention back to the other tables, Jack couldn't help but feel a shift in the air. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them, about Emily and her fears of the boogeyman. In the distance, the soft chime of bells echoed, reminding Jack that life was moving on. While he stood on the brink of something extraordinary, he could feel the call to action resonating within him, the urge to bridge the gap between two vastly different worlds. Moments later, Emily poked her head around the corner, her eyes brightening upon spotting him. "Mr. Jack, did you come to see the magic show next week?" He smiled down at her. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As shoppers hurried past the diner, whispering tales of their day, Jack realized he was ready to step into a much larger role. But the question loomed over him. Was he prepared to confront his own boogeyman, the fear of what it might take to truly change lives? Unbeknownst to him, that night would mark the beginning of a journey that could either heal 4 hearts or shatter them entirely. The following days passed like a blur for Jack. He found himself waking up each morning with a fresh resolve, a spark in his chest that had long been extinguished. The city buzzed around him as always, but now the noise felt quieter somehow, allowing room for clarity. Jack no longer just saw buildings and streets. He saw lives, stories, struggles, and victories simmering beneath the surface. Each evening, he returned to the diner. Jack soaked up every detail, the way the neon lights flickered against the glass. The aroma of bacon and coffee melded with the fresh sweetness of pancakes. He listened as Sarah shared bits of her life in between orders and, as the weeks progressed, opened up about Emily's fears. The girl had taken to drawing little monsters in her sketchbook, her innocent depiction of the boogeyman dancing through the lines. A surreal blend of creativity and genuine fright. "Sometimes, when things get too loud, I feel like he's watching me," Sarah confessed one night, her voice barely above a whisper. "She hides under her bed. We're working on it, but it's hard." Jack's heart sank. What if we could create a safe space for her? A place where kids like Emily can talk about their fears, maybe even confront them? Sarah's brows knitted again. "That sounds great, Jack. But how would we do that? Takes more than just good intentions. Takes resources. and maybe even trust from the people around here. Let me figure that out, he replied quietly. I'm not going to abandon this idea. With each exchanged word and shared moment, Jack began to understand the vastness of the divide. He recognized how money could offer solutions but also create walls. By focusing purely on financial support, he risked falling into the same patterns that had kept his past acquaintances at a distance. But working alongside Sarah, he started to see this community with fresh eyes. They would need more than just a savior. They needed collaboration. Jack reached out to community organizations, gleaning insights into what was truly needed. He found himself in meetings, presenting ideas, motivating people around common goals. Though he wore a suit, he felt like an outsider. Yet, the highs of passionate discussions kept him focused and inspired. Then a breakthrough came when Jack proposed a weekend event, a carnival filled with games and storytelling where families could learn about tackling their fears through fun. He put his heart into it, fostering connections among the locals, building bridges with Emily and Sarah as the groundwork. The day of the carnival arrived, and Jack stood by the entrance, taking in the scene unfolding before him. Tables were filled with crafts. Kids ran around with joy painted on their faces, and laughter echoed like music. Relief flooded through him. And then he spotted Emily. She stood beside a particularly large puppet, a creature with a friendly face, designed to represent her fear. At first, it was just a prop until Sarah encouraged her to share her story with the kids gathered around. Mr. Jack made the boogeyman disappear. She shouted, eyes gleaming with excitement. Jack felt his chest tighten. No, you did, Emily. You faced him. But just as triumph filled the air, a sudden hush swept through the crowd. Someone from the back shouted, "What's the real boogeyman?" Jack's heart dropped. A single question was ripping open the wounds he had hoped to heal, revealing that trust was more fragile than he had imagined. He turned to Sarah, whose face mirrored his uncertainty. How would they respond? Would the truth bring them closer, or push them further apart? As he prepared to speak, the realization hit him. The event that could change everything was frighteningly close to unraveling. Jack felt the air grow heavier with each passing second. The laughter and joy of the carnival began to fade away, replaced by an eerie silence that wrapped itself around him like a thick fog. He could see the curious faces of the children turned toward Emily, their innocent eyes wide with expectation. It struck him then this was a pivotal moment, one that would either bind them together or unravel the threads they had been weaving. He sensed Sarah's apprehension, mirrored in the way her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. What had begun as a playful exploration of childhood fears suddenly morphed into something deeper, an inquiry that felt like an open wound. "Let us talk about it," Jack said, his voice steady, though inside, his heart raced. He stepped forward, catching Emily's eye. "The boogeyman is a way for a lot of us to express what we're afraid of. But I think we should all share what scares us. Who wants to start?" A pause hung in the air before another kid piped up. "My dad says the real boogeyman is when you don't have money." A ripple of muttering broke out among the kids, their glances shifting from each other to the puppet. Jack swallowed hard. Felt like that little voice had struck a chord. He began, trying to channel the vulnerability he saw among them. Sometimes it is easy to get scared when we feel like we're losing something. Money can seem scary too, but it can also help us create safe spaces, just like this carnival. He pointed to the colorful booths around them, to the laughter soaring from the face-painting tent, to the stories unfolding at the puppet show. The real power comes from us being together, sharing our fears, and working as a team. We can't let fear win, right? Emily nodded slowly, her eyes flickering with recognition. She clutched the puppet tighter, not as a monster, but as a friend who had come to life. He could sense the shift in the crowd, the way their collective energy reignited, fueled by connection, empathy, and a shared journey through fear. "Can we all take turns?" One brave kid asked, stepping closer. "I want to tell about how I'm scared of the dark." "Yes," Jack exclaimed, his pulse pounding in rhythm with the shifting atmosphere. One by one, they began to share their fears, monsters under full beds, shadows and corners, even the big unknowns of growing up. Each story seemed to ripple through the crowd, turning the silence into an echo of stories united. As Jack listened, he felt Sarah's hand brush against his. It was a gesture that spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement that they were in this together. They were no longer just two people in a diner. They were a part of something much greater, a community healing itself, one story at a time. But just as Jack felt a swell of hope, the question about the true boogeyman lingered like a shadow. The unmistakable weight of their history loomed above, promising that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. The raw honesty and openness of the kids stirred something within him, a clarity that this carnival was just the beginning. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, he caught sight of Emily's face, now brimming with courage as she stepped forward. "I want to say my fear out loud too," she chirped, her innocence lighting the path forward. Jack knew right then a new chapter had begun for all of them, but what Emily was about to reveal could steer their journey in an unexpected direction. Would her truth strengthen their bond, or could it cast a shadow deeper than any monster? Emily took a deep breath, her small body steadying itself as if preparing to unveil a secret long hidden. The children's eyes, once loaded with innocence, now gleamed with curiosity and support. Jack's heart raced, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I am scared of the boogeyman," because her voice trembled, the weight of her truth pouring through. "He hides in my closet," and she paused. "Looking at the other kids, he tells me things. Bad things. He says no one cares about me. That my dad doesn't love me because he's never around." Jack felt the collective intake of breath from the kids around them. A wave of understanding washed over him. He thought of Sarah, her struggles, the times she had felt forgotten. But Emily was still speaking, her words raw and unfiltered. "Sometimes it feels like he's right. I know it's not true." But she faltered, tears starting to shimmer in her eyes, and the puppet dangled from her fingers as if sharing in her sadness. Jack stepped forward, kneeling beside her. "Emily," he said softly, "thank you for sharing that. We all feel scared sometimes, and that doesn't mean nobody cares. Your truth is powerful." The understanding in the air transformed into something tangible, as if invisible threads were weaving them closer together. Kids who had once been strangers looked at each other, a bond forming through shared vulnerability. "I know what that feels like," a boy spoke up, his voice steadying. "My mom works a lot, and sometimes I think she doesn't love me." "Yeah, and I feel lonely too," another added, emboldened by the unfolding honesty. Jack looked at the group with pride swelling in his chest. "All of these feelings are real, but they don't define us. The boogeyman may whisper lies, but the truth is that we're here, together. That means something." Yet, beneath the emerging camaraderie, Jack felt a familiar sense of dread creeping in. Could the stories they shared spark healing or unravel painful truths? The questions loomed deep, darkening the carnival glow. Then Emily, with tears still glistening, lifted her puppet, a newfound determination shining in her eyes. "Can we make the boogeyman go away together? He has been with me for too long." "Yes," other kids called out, their hearts igniting with hope. Jack smiled at their eagerness. "Absolutely, we can find ways to help each other fight those fears." His heart swelled as their collective energy shifted, becoming a mighty force. Just then, Emily, with a sparkle of mischief lighting up her features, turned the puppet towards the crowd. "Maybe we can turn him into a good guy," she suggested, laughter bubbling through the tension, filling the air with a simple yet powerful magic. Jack chuckled, embracing her spark of hope. "Yes, let us take back the story. We can make the boogeyman into someone who helps, not scares." The children erupted into a chorus of "yeah, and let us do it." As they rallied around Emily, Jack stepped back, watching their energy form a wild tapestry of colors and laughter against the waning light. But just as the joy began to swell, a distant sound broke the happy chorus, the siren of a police car, slicing through the carnival's triumphant noise. Nerves seemed to creep back in, a reminder that shadows continued to linger. Jack's heart sank as he turned to see where the siren was heading. Was it just a routine call or something deeper, something that would intertwine with their stories in unforeseen ways? The carnival had ignited a spark of unity and healing, But would it withstand the chaos looming just beyond the gates? A chill coursed through him as he realized their journey was far from over. And as Emily gripped her puppet tightly, Jack pondered what other truths lay beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. The laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that filled the air. Jack looked around at the children's faces, their smiles vanishing as a ripple of unease washed over them. The sirens were getting closer. He could feel their collective worry like a heavy blanket draping over the group. "Maybe we should," Jack started, his voice shaky, but he wasn't sure what they should do. The safety of the carnival seemed to be slipping through their fingers, much like the colorful cotton candy melting in the warm evening air. Emily stood rigid, her eyes fixated on the distant flashing lights. "What's happening?" she whispered, gripping her puppet as if it were a life raft. Jack kneeled down beside her, trying to shield her from the noise and the uncertainty. "Sometimes, things like this come from a place far away from us," he said softly. "The world is complicated, but we're safe and we're together. That means a lot." He hoped his words could weave comfort into the fear. Another child, a girl with curly hair, spoke up. "Is someone in trouble?" Her question hung heavy in the air, echoing the fear they were all feeling. Jack nodded slowly, trying to gather his thoughts. "Yeah, sometimes people need help. But remember, we can help each other first," he said, trying to steer their focus back to the power they had as a group. "Let us keep talking. What other fears do we have? What else is the boogeyman telling you?" The group turned to each other, their voices rising one by one. They spoke of monsters under the bed, shadows in the hall, and whispers in the night. It felt like a ritual, freeing secrets long kept in the dark. The boogeyman had been feeding on their fears, but now, as they shared those burdens, the weight seemed to lighten. Emily sighed, her eyes brightening just a bit. "What if we could create a story where the boogeyman wasn't he scary?" she asked, her innocence shining through the darkness. "What if he was afraid of us?" "Yeah," a boy shouted, enthusiasm bubbling up again. "Maybe he just wants to play. We could show him how to have fun." Jack couldn't help but smile as the idea caught fire among the kids. "That's it. What if he just never learned that we can be friends? We can teach him." Excited chatter erupted, laughter returning as their fears transformed into ideas. The boogeyman became a misunderstood character, someone seeking companionship rather than instilling terror. As Jack watched the children brainstorm new identities for their former nightmare, a pang of anxiety gnawed at him. The sirens still wailed in the distance. It was an ominous reminder that while they were creating light in one corner of their universe, chaos brewed just outside. Emily reached out, tugging gently at Jack's shirt. "Can we turn the sirens into something good too? Like a call for help?" He nodded, heart swelling with admiration for her innocence and bravery. "That's a beautiful idea, Emily. They could be a reminder that people are out there caring for others, and that we're going to be okay." Just then, a shadow fell over them. Jack turned and found a police officer standing close by, his expression kind but serious. "Hey kids, is everything all right here?" I heard there was a commotion, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over him. Jack opened his mouth to respond. But suddenly, the officer turned to Emily. "I noticed you holding that puppet. Can you tell me what's going on?" As the officer listened, Jack felt a wave of tension rise with a new uncertainty. With every word Emily spoke, the officer's eyes narrowed slightly as Jack wondered, would they believe her? Would courage and creativity be enough to confront the truth that was unfolding? And just as Emily finished her thought, another siren blared in the distance. Emily clutched her puppet tighter, her little fingers trembling as if the world around her was about to fracture. The officer's gaze remained steady, yet Jack could sense the weight of unspoken questions hanging between them. What kind of chaos had brought them together? What had the children really felt in their hearts? We were just talking about fear," Emily piped up, her voice clear yet soft. "Jack said the boogeyman might not be scary after all. Maybe he just wants to be friends." Jack couldn't help but beam with pride at her bravery. It was that simple spark of hope she held on to like a lifeline. But worries gnawed at his mind. Would the officer find this idea foolish? Friends? The officer raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping into his tone. And what does the boogeyman do that is so frightening? The kids exchanged glances, their earlier laughter fading, replaced with the shadow of uncertainty. Jack sensed it was now or never. He shifted, summoning courage he knew he had to project. Sometimes we feel scared because things we don't understand can feel big and bad. But it's important to share and talk about it, Jack said, trying to infuse confidence into his words. Just like how we're talking now, we can break down our fears and turn them into something better. The children nodded, some whispering quietly to one another, their spirits wavering but still present. Emily's eyes, full of innocence, glanced up at the officer, pleading for understanding. But it's real, the sirens are coming, she said softly. People might really need help. What if we're scared for them? The officer's demeanor softened as he listened. Jack could see the wheels turning in his mind. You're right, sweet girl, he said gently. Sometimes the world feels scary. But it's brave of you to talk about it. Can you tell me what you all think is happening out there? As the children gathered their thoughts, Jack sensed a collective strength building at their core. They weren't just kids exchanging fears. They were a band of warriors willing to confront their shadows. With each confession, they shed insecurities like old coats, creating a tapestry of resilience. One child spoke about a neighbor's cat that had gone missing. Another mentioned a scary movie they once saw, unsure if the fright was real. Emily chimed in again. What if the sirens mean there's a brave hero helping someone who needs it? They're out there shining bright. We just can't see it. There was a silence. Then, nods and murmurs of agreement flowed through the group like a ripple. Jack felt the swell of hope rising again, lifting their spirits higher. The boogeyman wasn't just a creature of darkness. He was a reflection of themselves, full of fears yet brimming with potential for joy. Tell me more about your stories, the officer prompted, and Jack realized he had a unique opportunity. This was a moment to teach, to connect, to understand just how powerful storytelling could be. But just then, the sharp blast of another siren pierced the air, louder, more urgent. Kids flinched, falling back into uncertainty. Jack's chest tightened. What was happening outside the carnival? As he looked to Emily, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and determination. He knew there was a thin line between fear and courage. Maybe we should make our own sirens, she murmured, eyes lighting up, like a call for friendship, not fear. Would they be able to transform their fear into something beautiful? Could they confront the truth of that chaotic world outside? As Jack and the children gathered around, ready to embark on a new narrative, he caught a glimpse of unity, but shadows lingered close behind. What lay beyond the carnival gates? And would their newfound strength be enough to face the storm that awaited? Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself as the siren faded into the distance. The air around them felt thick, heavy with expectation. The children's eyes flickered with a mix of fear and determination. Whatever was happening outside, they couldn't let it crush the fragile hope they had just built. What if we made our own sirens, like Emily said? Something that calls for help but also brings us together? Jack suggested, allowing his voice to rise with optimism. We can make noise in our own way. We can be brave. The children's faces lit up, their spirits reigniting. It was as if a light had burst through their collective shadow, illuminating their imaginations. Kids began to clap their hands together, a rhythmic beat that sounded like a drum echoing through the carnival grounds. Let us find things to make our sirens, shouted one child, eyes wide with excitement. Yes, we can gather anything: bottles, cans, even our voices, Emily added, and Jack noticed how her innocence breathed energy into the group. Her puppet dangled from her hands, forgotten in her excitement. With newfound resolve, they scattered, each child hunting for anything that could contribute to their noisy call for camaraderie. Jack watched as small hands picked up discarded items. An empty soda can, colorful bits of plastic, even clumps of grass pulled from the earth. Look at this, someone yelled, waving a broken tambourine above their head. Jack chuckled, feeling light-hearted joy bubble within him. It wasn't just about making noise. It was about the connection, the will to transform their fear into creativity, to create strength from vulnerability. As they gathered in a small circle, Emily stepped forward with a brilliant smile on her face. "Okay, let us start. Every time we make a sound, we'll shout out something we care about. That way, we're all like heroes cheering for each other. Let us shout friends first," Jack called, catching the infectious vibe of the moment. Fun and laughter flowed freely as they poured their hearts into the togetherness they were crafting. They nodded to one another, their voices erupting with joy. "Friends, friends, friends." Suddenly, the officer who had been standing by, observing quietly, stepped closer with a look of curiosity mixed with admiration. "You guys sure know how to make noise for friendship," he said, his voice warm. "Maybe you're onto something here. You've turned chaos into community." Jack felt a sense of proud protectiveness swell within him. These kids were stepping into their own strength, rising like flowers through cracks in the concrete. They were harnessing their fears, reshaping them into something powerful. But just as the moment reached its peak, another loud siren interrupted the celebration. This one felt different, urgent, and piercing. It lurked outside the carnival, a reminder of the world just beyond their little realm of camaraderie. Emily's smile tugged at the seams as her eyes widened, uncertainty creeping back in. But what if someone really needs help? What if we're not enough? Jack knelt beside her, his voice low but steady. "You are enough, Emily. Sometimes, being brave is just about being here for each other. And the stronger we are together, the more we can do." "What do we do next?" she whispered, a mix of innocence and resolve tugging at her heart. He hesitated, heart racing, feeling the pull of leadership resting heavily on his shoulders. They could create their own noise, their own sirens, but what if it wasn't enough? What if they needed to do more? Jack looked into the eyes of each child, determination shining against the backdrop of uncertainty. "We face it together. We go beyond the gates. We find out what's happening out there. And if we find someone who needs our help, we'll be ready." With a deep breath, he stood tall, the children's whispers rising and overlapping into a unified chorus of courage. What awaited them outside? Would their call for friendship be strong enough to combat the echoes of fear? The moment of truth was approaching, and they would soon learn whether hope could thrive in a world steeped in chaos. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline as the urgency of their decision settled in. He looked around at the children, their faces transformed by a mix of determination and apprehension. Each one mirrored his own turbulent emotions, an unspoken agreement binding them together. "Okay, everyone, on 3 we're gonna chant one last time," he exclaimed, his heart fluttering with anticipation. "Let us remind ourselves who we are. 1, 2, 3. Friends, friends, friends." Their voices rang out, a bold declaration that filled the carnival air. With that empowering shout echoing in his ears, Jack led the way towards the exit of the carnival grounds. Every step into the unknown felt like both an act of bravery and a leap into a void. The officer, seeing their resolve, fell in behind them, a protective shadow. As they approached the gates, the distant wail of sirens grew louder, a relentless reminder of the chaos beyond their haven. Jack glanced at Emily, who walked closely by his side, clutching her forgotten puppet. Her brave facade faltered for a moment. Then she squeezed his hand. He could feel the warmth radiating from her small fingers, that simple gesture a reassurance. "Just remember," he said softly, looking down at her. "We're together. We can get through anything together." They reached the gates, and Jack pushed them open. A harsh light poured in, illuminating a world that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The vivid colors of the carnival seemed to fade behind them, replaced by the sharp outlines of reality. The air outside felt charged, almost electric, as they stepped through the gates. The sounds of shouting and engines filled their ears. It was a stark contrast to the playful laughter they had just left behind. The group paused, their unity tightening as they glanced at one another for encouragement. "What do we do now?" one child whispered, his voice barely audible over the clamor. "We stick together," Jack replied, summoning every ounce of courage he could find. We look for anyone who might need help. Look for anyone who is scared. Remember what we shouted, we're their friends too. Moving forward, they ventured into the heart of the chaos, scanning the scene before them with wide eyes. A small group of people had gathered, their faces masked with worry. A woman was kneeling on the ground, her hands covering her face, muffled sobs escaping through her fingers. Without thinking, Jack stepped closer. "Are you okay?" he called out, breaking through the noise to reach her. She looked up at him, eyes glistening with fear. "It's my daughter, she's lost." The moment hung, thick with tension. Jack's heart sank. In that single plea, a call for help resonated through him. The truth of it gripped him like a vice. "Okay, we can help find her," he proclaimed, his voice steady. He could feel the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Yet it also sparked something within him, a fierce determination. Emily stepped forward, her eyes wide and bright. "What does she look like?" "We'll look for her." As the woman described her daughter, the children's faces transformed again, this time with a different kind of purpose. They were no longer just a group of scared kids. They were a team, ready to mobilize their collective strength. "Let us split up," Jack called, his voice rising above the chaos. "We can cover more ground this way. Remember, we shout her name Lucy." The woman interrupted between breaths. "Her name is Lucy, right? On three." Jack rallied them, adrenaline surging. 1, 2, 3. "Lucy! Lucy! Lucy!" They all cried out, their small voices rising against the mounting noise. As they spread out, scouring the area, Jack couldn't shake the gnawing worry building inside him. What if they couldn't find Lucy? What if they were too late? But there was no turning back now. They were in it together. And within that unity, perhaps they could overcome anything, even fear itself. Would their hope endure in the face of so much uncertainty? One last shout rang through the air, and then, from somewhere deep within the chaos, a small voice answered. "Mommy!" The sound cut through Jack, fueling the fire of hope igniting within him. What awaited them in the heart of this frantic search? Would they truly find Lucy? The children paused, their little hearts pounding as the voice echoed through the chaos. Jack felt a surge of adrenaline rush through him. "That's her!" he yelled, sprinting toward the sound. They followed, their tiny feet pounding against the pavement. He rounded a corner, and there she was, Lucy, a small girl with tangled hair and tear-stained cheeks, standing amidst the crowd as panic swirled around her. The sight of her brought a rush of relief that filled Jack's chest, pushing away the fear that had threatened to engulf him. "Lucy!" the mother cried, rushing forward, arms wide open. It was a sight that made Jack's heart swell. The little girl launched herself into her mother's embrace, and Jack could see the tension in the woman's body dissolve in an instant. "Mommy!" Lucy sobbed, clinging to her mother as if she were her anchor in the storm. The group of children watched, their hearts warming with each tear that fell. Courage surged through Jack as he realized they had achieved something monumental, not just finding Lucy, but creating a chain of support and understanding. Even amidst uncertainty and chaos, they'd banded together, and in that moment, they had been heroes. But Jack's attention turned towards Emily, whose eyes glimmered with hope as she observed the reunion. "See?" she whispered to Jack, her voice a mix of wonder and belief. "Being together does make a difference." Just then, the officer who had been keeping watch approached. His expression softened now. "Well done, kids. You really helped her. That's teamwork right there." The children beamed under the praise. Their fears temporarily vanished like the mist in the morning sun. Jack felt a rush of gratitude for the kids, for Emily, for the journey they'd undertaken together. Maybe their sirens had reached someone after all. As the mother finally pulled Lucy back from the warmth of her embrace, Jack spoke up. "Is there anything else we can do for you? We're here to help." She looked at him, stunned by the group of small supporters. "I think we're okay now. Thank you," she said, wiping away the last of her tears and offering Jack a grateful smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. But there was more to this than helping one lost girl, he felt it. They all did. Jack looked back at the children, the stars of this story. They had faced their fears together, turned abstract monsters into tangible friends. Their once distant boogeymen transformed by empathy and courage. Okay, everyone, Jack said, gathering their attention. I know this day didn't go exactly as we planned. But look at what we accomplished. Not just finding Lucy, but we created our sirens. Our call for help. You faced your fears. You all helped to create a safe space for someone who needed it. Loud cheers erupted from the children. Their joy infectious. They were a community now, transformed by their shared experiences, by the strength in their voices. Emily raised her puppet high, a symbol of their collective triumph. And we can keep going. Our voices matter. Yes, Jack added, feeling the heat of pride swell within him once more. Together we can still make a change. A real change. They all nodded, determination brimming in their eyes. The sirens outside faded into the background as they found their purpose in that unassuming spot, a community united, armed with courage and compassion. As they made their way back to the carnival grounds, the chaotic sounds of sirens transformed into a distant memory, a reminder of the resilience they had discovered within themselves. That day would be one they would carry in their hearts forever, a moment that illuminated the vast power of working together, of facing fears, and of connection. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across their small town, the agent of change, the Boogeyman, was on his way to becoming a faded thought in the lives of those they had helped. Let us keep transforming stories, Jack said as they approached the entrance, where the laughter of families mingled with the twinkling lights of the carnival. Together, Emily cheered, her eyes sparkling with hope. A celebration erupted among the children. But deep down, Jack knew this was just the beginning. The journey of healing, of bridging old divides, of standing together against the Boogeyman was well underway. As the carnival lights flickered alive, laughter and warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. In that moment, they knew they had all been transformed by something greater than fear, a lasting connection woven together by kindness, understanding, and love. So here we are, standing hand in hand, ready for whatever lies ahead. It's time to step into the light. Now, if you felt even a little bit of joy, strength, or inspiration from this journey, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more stories like this. Hit that like button right away to feed the algorithm and keep these positive tales coming. I want to hear from you. So comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share your thoughts because they matter. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, let us keep spreading hope.